Hey everybody, this is Tanner Invests here. I appreciate you guys tuning in today. It's going to be a video pretty packed on cryptocurrency in general, but also obviously SharpLink Gaming, ticker symbol SBET, and BMNR, which is Bitmine Emerging Technologies. Going to go over some new updates regarding all of those, as well as getting into some, like I said, broader crypto updates. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to talk about like what I'm doing with my money right now. And so let's go ahead and hop into some updates here, guys. So first, I want to talk about Bullish. So history, actually, Bullish. Let's start there. So Bullish is a cryptocurrency brokerage firm. They actually facilitate trading, custody, and management of digital assets for larger institutions primarily. And so I think that's really good for, generally speaking, like the cryptocurrency landscape, having companies like this that are coming out with proven use cases, getting institutions more involved. I think overall that's going to cause more demand for crypto. One thing that I think is really cool that they did was that they actually proceeds from the Bullish IP were settled in stablecoins. So they made history where a large portion, 1.15 billion, was actually completely basically minted with stablecoins. Now, one thing to note, guys, is they actually are in using the Solana Foundation primarily. So I think all this was minted through Solana chain. So guys, keep that in mind. You know, a lot of us are loving on Ethereum right now. You know, Tom Lee and Joseph Lubin really hyping up ETH, but there are other chains out there. So like I mentioned in my last video, I will be diversifying a little bit into Solana, maybe even some XRP, just to, you know, hedge my bets a little bit, because I do think they all have a bright future ahead of them. So let's go ahead and hop into this real quick. So I wanted to quickly show this video here where the CEO of Bullish actually also made history as well, where they allocated 20% of the shares from the IPO to retail investors, which is something that's historically never happened at that level before. And so real quick, after he's asked about this is kind of the reasoning behind it.
And we looked at it and we said we want to break the mold here, and we want retail to participate. We think retail is underestimated with respect to their sophistication. And so we went with a full, pardon me, I said 3 million. I'm sorry, it was 6 million.
Okay, right.
Guys, they're recognizing people like me, people like you. We're actually not that stupid. We're not that dumb money anymore, guys. We're actually putting the time, putting the effort into understanding these things. And I think we're a little smarter than we used to be. And clearly, guys, they had a very successful IPO. They IPO'd at $37, immediately pumped up, just like we've seen with Figma, just like we saw with a couple other, Circle, for example. They've had very successful IPOs. Be careful, though. If the next IPO comes out, it might not be the same story. IPOs are generally super volatile. But they peaked up at 92 and have been trading down since. Obviously, I feel like this is going to keep trading down a little bit. But Bullish is or a stock that I'm going to absolutely keep my eyes on. I'll probably follow them maybe in a video. Maybe I'll make a whole Bullish video, as well as, keep an eye on them over their earnings reports and things like that over time. So also, I wanted to talk about this video here. So Stripe has been coming out with this Cheeky Pint video series where the CEO of Stripe sits down and talks to other people within the industry. So CEO Brian Armstrong, and you can see here in the top here, a Cheeky Pint with Robinhood CEO Vlad Tenev. So man, really cool. They've had some really cool people on. And what I think was really cool about this video and Brian Armstrong, I'm not going to actually show any clips from it, but Brian Armstrong actually talked about how he thinks by 2030 that Bitcoin will reach $1 million. And guys, I've talked about this in the past. People that have these really, really, really high price targets on Bitcoin and on Ethereum, you got to be careful, just because a lot of them have their own narrative and like why they want that to happen. He owns Coinbase. If Bitcoin goes to $1 million, there's going to be a lot of trading through the next 5 years on his platform specifically. He's going to make a lot of money if it goes to $1 million, of course, because partial of when you trade on Coinbase or Robinhood, they actually have a take rate based on a percentage of what you're trading. So that's a lot of money that they can earn if that does go up. That being said, I personally believe if it's digital gold, right now we're at a 2.5 roughly trillion dollar market cap. Gold is 23 trillion. We're about 1/10 the size of gold. So over time, if we are digital gold and the demand continues to increase while supply is not increasing, well, very slightly, of course, at this time, then I do also believe that we could easily hit $1 million over time. I don't know by 2030. I'm not, I don't have, unfortunately, I can't read the future, but I do think Bitcoin will have a bright future ahead of it. That's why obviously I'm invested in Bitcoin. Now, part of the reason why Brian Armstrong, he gave some insight as to why he thinks this is the case. Part of it is due to regulation. So we know that Trump obviously signs the Genius Act into law. So what that means is that now there's he's basically trying to make America the leader in digital assets, give more regulation, more clarity behind stablecoins, mostly in specifics. So we're they have consumer protections in this bill, ensuring the U.S. Dollar global reserve currency status. So saying that like stablecoins are backed fully to the U.S. dollar. Combating illicit activity in digital assets, so trying some more consumer protections in that space. And we know in the past, cryptocurrency has had a little bit of a history with hackings and things like that. Delivering on promise to make America the crypto capital of the world. So all this stuff is basically telling investors, retail institutions, that there's more clarity behind stablecoins. And so actually, Brian Armstrong, in his interview here with Stripe, they actually talked about this and said that Brian Armstrong has had many discussions with institutional, investment banks and asset managers, and a lot of them right now are allocating maybe like 1% of their total portfolio into cryptocurrencies. And he's like, hey, why not 5%? Why not 10%? And the reasoning is because of regulational clarity. If there was more regulation behind it, more clarity behind a future, so it's less risky to these institutions, then they will actually be buying more. Also, we have the Clarity Act, which is now passed the Senate. It actually passed the House of Representatives. So that is something where we're actually just getting more clarity behind cryptocurrency as well. So that's really great. So let's go ahead and hop into the price action behind all of the assets. So first, the underlying, of course, Ethereum between BMNR and SBET. We have trading at about 4,300. Last week we actually were much higher. We're about 7% drawdown from there. And over the past month, we are still up 12%. So people feel like the world's falling. Guys, 4,200 is still way higher than where we were. Just August 2nd, we were at 3,300. We're still up significantly. So, I know it's a little cliche to say, but zoom out. Like, honestly, just zoom out a little bit, guys. And then one thing I do want to talk about here, too, is that remember these plays like SBET, BMNR, they are, diluting shareholders on a weekly basis as well as purchasing Ethereum on a weekly basis. So when Ethereum comes out with an X post and says, hey, this is the price we bought ETH at last week, you guys got to realize you got to look at the price of what it was last week. So there was a lot of people on X where they were like, why did you buy ETH at 4,600? Like, guys, it peaked at 47, 4,800. They bought last week. So that's the price they're DCAing. They're buying over time. So this next week when it comes out, it's likely going to say that I think they've been buying on Monday primarily. So maybe around 4,400, 4,300, somewhere in that ballpark. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're not just buying on Monday. They might be buying throughout the week. They might be buying in these little dips in 4,200, 4,100. So just keep that in mind as we're exploring X post, because a lot of people just still do not understand the stuff. Now, SBET, sorry, this is now in white mode. Glasses are definitely glaring right now, but that's okay. So as you see, in my position, I'm down 15%. Not sweating at all, guys. Like I said, this is a very long-term hold. If I still follow the narrative that SharpLink is going to be increasing their ETH concentration, because remember, we're not using MNAV for SharpLink anymore because that's what they decided. They want to use ETH concentration. As long as that ETH concentration calculation, that formula is going up, we are good. Over time, they're going to be acquiring a ton more ETH. And ultimately, as long as they're not diluting as much as they're getting in the value of ETH, then the MNAV, ETH concentration, will go up. And so let's look at a monthly chart. We are down significantly, 25%. I feel like I still got in at a pretty early time, $22 a share, roughly, give or take. My average is $22.67. Now, BitMine, You know, I do wish I put in more to BitMine. I'm still a little late to the party here. I mean, obviously, there's a good reason I didn't buy up here in the high 60s, which is when I mostly put in my money for SharpLink. So I still think, you know, 50, we're getting to that like 1.7 MNAV, which I'm going to get into all the numbers here in a minute. But I still think, you know, this might be a little pricey. Just because right now the treasuries just in general, even like strategy, which I'll get into in a second as well, strategy is actually went from a 1.7 to about a 1.56 on their MNAV. So just treasuries in general, the MNAV has been dropping as of late. But that being said, it seems like BitMine has found some pretty big resistance around this like $48 to $50 range, and they've been kind of sitting and tucked in there. Today we are down about 3 based on where they were. Now, Bitcoin. Let's talk about Bitcoin real quick because Bitcoin is down 5% over the week. Over the month, we're down still about 5%. 113,000, looking like not a bad number. We just saw 124,000 on August 13th. And then there's been a lot of murmurs about MicroStrategy, guys. MicroStrategy down 19%, down 13% on the week, and down 19% over a 3-month period. And it has underperformed over the last 3 months. Actually, about the last 6 months, it has underperformed the underlying asset. But remember, guys, we got to look at all the data here. Let's go to 1-year chart. Bitcoin's up 91%. MicroStrategy is up 152%. Now, I wanted to do just a little bit of math, guys, because one of the huge advantages to having an Ethereum treasury is that you can stake ETH. And I know we talked about this a lot, but Joseph Lubin he keeps reiterating this. If you listen to the earnings call for SharpLink Gaming, you're going to know one of the big things they kept talking about was the fact that you can stake Ethereum. Tom Lee's talked about it. That's one of the big reasons he's really bullish. So you're getting a 3% yield on your holdings. So let's look at MicroStrategy, because MicroStrategy obviously holds a lot of Bitcoin. We can see here their Bitcoin net asset value is at 71.279 billion, and the market cap is at 90. God, why can't I talk right now? 96.247 billion, and that's where you get that MNAV at 1.56. So let's go ahead real quick and let's do a calculation, because let's say that they, with this amount of money, they were able to buy or get a 3% yield on 71 billion worth of Bitcoin. So let's do that times 0.03. They'd be getting 2.1 billion per year, and then we divide that by 12. That's about 180 million a month, or we can divide that by 4 roughly, $45 million a week. Obviously, they're holding way more Bitcoin than I think Ethereum treasuries really ever will. But my point is man, I bet Michael Saylor is like, I wish Bitcoin had a yield. They'd have 45 million coming in a week, 180 million coming in every month, and 2.17 billion coming in every single year. And that is kind of the strategy behind Ethereum, is that Tom Lee, you know, we've calculated at about an alchemy of 5% based on today's prices, not future prices. You're going to be getting way more than that. You're going to, or not more than that, but you're going to get about 775 million a year at today's prices. But if that goes up, it could be 1.5 billion if it doubles, 3 billion if it goes doubles from there. So in the future, you know, I'm saying like years ahead, they could be getting billions and billions of dollars per year, just like MicroStrategy is today on that asset. It's fantastic, guys. Let's go ahead and get into the MNAV update from Risk on Bobby. Shout out to Risk on Bobby. Every time I show this, I definitely want to give him a shout out because he puts in a lot of time here, where we can take a look at the different treasuries for Ethereum. So we do see ETHZilla, which we talked about in our last video. They, of course, were trading really high. Like I mentioned, that obviously fell off. And by the way, ETHZilla was a different ticker that changed from like ATNF, I think is the ticker. If not, I'll put it right here. But BMNR, we see, is at a 1.7 MNAV. They still have a ton of cash yet to be deployed. So the additional ETH purchasable is a lot, 4.2 million. Now we have 1.2x fully deployed MNAV. SharpLink Gaming is at a 1.1 current MNAV and a lot less cash on hand, of course. That's kind of the big thing with BMNR, is that since they've traded at such a premium, they actually are a little bit more flexible on what they can do with their strategy. Because if they're trading at a high MNAV, their stock price is higher, they can use ATM offerings more aggressively And that's why you've actually seen BMNR, or sorry, let me hop into this first. SharpLink, in their latest weekly report they came out with, they talked about their total ETH climbing to 740,000, raising how much money they raise in net proceeds. But as you see here, their actual ATM net proceeds are only 146. So let me zoom in here. That's probably stuck by my. So you can see here 146 million in net proceeds were raised at the ATM. So you can see actually, since their stock price has gone down over these weeks, they're using less ATM. So they're actually like half of what they were the week prior. But they did buy actually a lot more. They actually bought 143,000 ETH at, honestly, people are saying a pretty high price of 46.48 average. That was the price that it was last week. So we want them to buy ETH. You can't get upset when they buy ETH and then the price goes down. This is a volatile asset. I've been saying it every single video. This is volatile. And if you can't handle that, you might want to find a different stock to buy. So let's go ahead and hop into a little bit of Bitmine news. So Bitmine, as you see here, has over double now the ETH holdings that SharpLink Gaming has. ETH holdings of 1.5 million is valued at 6.6 billion. They are just going very, very fast, guys. It almost reminds me of, oh, I wanted this to be more zoomed in, the tortoise and the hare. Yeah, so one is a little slow, more strategic. Maybe he'll end up winning. Who knows? Maybe the hare will actually cross the finish line. I'm kidding, guys. I really do think that both of these strategies are good buys. I think depends on what you're more aligned with, but I think over time will be good as long as the underlying asset goes up. I think both stock prices of BMNR and SBET should go up as well. But here in this thread, they talked about quite a bit of things. They used this log scale to show that they're at 6.6 million in Ethereum, and that, or 6.6 billion, sorry, versus MicroStrategy's 74 billion. They're still completely dwarfed by the number one MicroStrategy, of course, but they are the number two now. They're the number two digital asset treasury. Fantastic. And then we see down here, BMNR, they are ranked number 10 in liquidity because of the amount of volume that's being traded. I mean, that is insane, guys. Let me zoom into this picture. See this. They are number 10. Whiplash. Tesla, Nvidia, Apple, AMD, Microsoft, Palantir, Amazon, Meta, United Health Group, and Bitmine. Bitmine is the number 10th most liquid stock in the entire market, guys. That's crazy. Speaking of JP Morgan, they recently said Ethereum suited for meteoric, hate that word, meteoric stablecoin growth. I'm really bad at pronunciation, guys. I've been getting some stuff in the comments about how I mispronounce certain things, but hey, guys, that's a part of it. Tomato, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, so regarding Ethereum, per Tom Lee, Fundstrat, the Genius Act, and SEC Project Crypto are transforming to financial services in 2025. We talked about this earlier. I mean, they're agreeing. The 1971 event, which is funny because I talked about this as well. This is the gold window closing. The 1971 event was the catalyst for modernization of Wall Street, creating the iconic Wall Street Titans and financial and payment rails. Today, these proved to be better investments than gold. Okay, so he's saying maybe now that we're moving into a even more digital transformation, that maybe it'll be as well a better investment than gold, which I agree. And then the company strategy of Bitmine is detailed in our investor relations, yada, yada, yada. So they're doing great things. Not much news regarding that. I haven't really seen Tom Lee on CNBC chat about it as much as he was, which is totally fine. But back to some SharpLink gaming news, guys. They are still on the trustware train, which I completely agree. The fact that Ethereum versus the rest of these big titans out here have had, over the past 10 years, the amount of major outages. Ethereum is at 0 downtime. Cloudflare had an outage. Google, X, Facebook, Solana, yikes, 24 hours. They are hitting them. And then Google, Amazon Web Services, Salesforce. But we're at 0 downtime on Ethereum over 10 years, which is crazy. And the other thing crazy I see in this is I've been on X a lot lately, and I feel like just in the past month, like two X outages past couple months. So I'm surprised that's not higher to me. But let's go ahead and go here, guys. So this is I wanted to bring this up because this was a little confusing to me. This is the amount of ETH they purchased last week, 143,000, 4,648. And then if you go to their other, it's right here. They also tweeted this, where as you see here, I'm not going to zoom. Sorry about the whiplash. But they are, this little white arrow that's pointing to this number here shows the exact amount of ETH, but they're showing it at a different price of 4,309. Hey, so when I was editing the video, I actually looked back at this ETH portfolio tracker and noticed that the line is actually showing the announcement date. So when they announced that they acquired ETH, it's kind of confusing. It looks like it's like a lagging indicator about 1 week, because this is showing when they made the announcements, not when they actually made the purchase. Let's go ahead and hop into the next thing. This is a weekly update on SBET, just so we can follow it more from an average perspective. We do see, since they acquired this much ETH at this much cost, now we have the total purchase price, which was about double what they purchased any other time. And then we have an average share of 3,472 average ETH. And then now, guys, that's about it for the SBET and BMNR news. There's not a ton, like I said. Really, I think just following Risk on Bobby on X is a great idea to just understand the MNAVs. My personal thoughts is that I'm still in the same boat where I really believe in the execution of Joseph Lubin, the co-founder of Ethereum. I really believe in Joe Chalem, the BlackRock managing director that they brought on board to lead SBET. And then I'm also bullish on the fact that they just have an ecosystem of Linea, MetaMask. So there are ways that I think over time they can just make Ethereum just overall more effective. I am bullish on the fact that the Ethereum network in general is getting updates to it to make it more fast, so that they can be competitive. Because right now Solana is fast, but Ethereum is more secure and trustworthy, and that's why Tom Lee's saying that institutions have chosen Ethereum. And so I think that over time, if we can not only be the most secure and the most trustworthy chain, and we're also faster, close to the fastest out there, that would be fantastic. So we have zero knowledge EMV proofs coming out that are going to be helping speed up the chain through these layer 2s, and Linea from Consensus, and which is Joseph Lubin's company, is leading that charge. So that's about it for that. I'm going to hop into just a side note here, because I did make a video yesterday, and people really were asking, Tanner, why did you throw in 70,000 this week whenever we're having, Jerome Powell go and talk in front of everybody in Jackson Hole on Friday? And this is why. So a little story about, myself is that I'm not the best at timing. That's why, SharpLink, I just went ahead and threw all my money in. I'm at a $22 average, but same thing goes for stocks, because there are times where I've done the opposite and it didn't work out for me. So there's actually, do you guys remember April 8th, whenever the tariffs got released, that they were going on a hold for another month? After that same week, Donald Trump mentioned that he's going to be sticking to his guns, and tariffs are happening no matter what. And then he actually put a delay on that, which caused the market to absolutely just rally instantly. In one day, stocks were up 10%, 8%, 12%. And so I lost 6 or 7. I did the math. I lost 6 or 7 grand on that one day because I didn't have money in the market. So time in the market is better than timing the market. That's my big philosophy. So let's say even if Jerome Powell comes out on Friday and he's a little bit more dovish than people are expecting, then maybe we can expect a little bit of a rally. I also think just this year, with a lot of the fact that actually, I want to get into this because this is an interesting little chart here. When the Fed cuts interest rates within 2% of stock market all-time highs, the S&P 500 has gone on to finish higher over the next 12 months, 20 out of 20 times, a 100% hit rate. So right now, we're near all-time highs, and Powell is likely going to cut. If he doesn't cut, obviously, we're thinking the cut will now come in September. If it does come in September, and we are going to see, hopefully, over the next year, a positive in the market, which has happened 20 out of the last 20 times. So we do see there has been some pain in the short term, but the next 3 months, next 6 months, but throughout that final next year, the following 12 months have always incurred a market increase. It's awesome. I mean, obviously, that might not happen again. You know, there might be a time where it doesn't. But as of now, 20 out of the last 20 times that this has happened, it's caused an increase in the market over a 12-year period, with some being as high as 21%, 25%, 28% back in the 80s. Back in the 90s, we had gainers of 21, 22% over the next following 12 months. That's awesome. And then one other thing here is, like, guys, stop worrying about bear markets. Look at this graph. I am a long-term trader. I completely agree with, like, I'm keeping my money in. I am 29 years old. I'm not freaking out if the market goes down a little bit, because over time we've seen huge gains during bull markets. Bear markets, we've seen big losses. They're typically shorter time periods. But you know, we have right now, we're at about 78% in 2.4 years. That has been quite a bit return in a short amount of time. But in the past, we have seen, you know, 11 years, 12.3 years, 7.1 years of bull markets where it's just, there is no bear market. It's bull market. I think right now we might be in one of those extended bull market periods because we have things like AI. People are worried about the bubble from dot-com bubble, but AI is proving that it's not. I don't think it's going to be a bubble, because what it's doing to businesses is we're going to see better earnings. We're going to see stronger revenues. We're going to see better gross profits. We're going to see less, you know, expenses, of course, with labor expenses and things like that. Where I could see AI maybe hurting the economy is potentially if jobs do fully go away and that there aren't jobs in existence anymore. That would be terrible because people aren't making money. Unemployment rate would go up. But I think the world's going to innovate and expand. And so I'm looking at this chart saying I'm not going to sell all my stuff, wait to put my money in the market. I'd rather just put it in and let it accumulate. So that's it for me, guys. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and see you guys in the next video.